My goal is the truth, like the great author Ernest Hemingway once said, and I'm pouring one out for him. Ernest, dearest, this is for you. Ooh. Ooh. Welcome. Welcome one and all to my worst books of the year video. Someone suggested last year that I should just have a little bit of wine, have that truth serum. So that's what we're doing this year. Because a lot of times, honestly, I hold myself back when I'm talking about books because I don't want to, I don't know, ruffle any feathers. But none of you have feathers anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I don't drink. I don't really drink ever. Red wine is the only alcohol I have in the house, and I've already had about half a cup, and that's all it takes, folks. I'm not gonna lie, that's all it takes. So I don't know what this video is about to be. I'm gonna try to take a sip. Let's take a sip every time. I'm gonna take a sip for probably every serious book sin that I'm about to list. I drink maybe 5 times a year, and this is my worst books of the year video. Welcome. How are you doing? I film these every year. These are not books that have come out in 2022, but these are my own personal worst books that I read in 2022, whether those were disappointments, books that I really hated. Some of these I think are objectively bad books, but I have selected 10 of the books that I read this year that I just... Why? They gave me nothing except to further expand my taste in what I hate, which is really important. And as always, just because I hated this book, you could love it. I'm excited to inadvertently give some recommendations, but also hopefully steer you clear from books that you don't need to waste your time with. So we're gonna just kick it off with number 10. Coming in at number 10 is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I read this for the first time this year. I'm not going to be continuing the series. This is a really beloved book. This is about Selena Sardothian. That deserved a sip. She has been a slave for about a year in the salt mines of Endovier. I don't know why, like, can you just write fantasy names with a bit more linguistic flair and linguistic sense than, like, what the hell is Selena Sardothian? What the hell is a Selena Sardothian? But you have to understand that just because she's trapped in the salt mines doing hard labor, she's an assassin. She is the best assassin that the kingdom has ever seen. I think she's like 16 or something. This whole book is based on the premise that our main character is an assassin, and the king of Otterlin is having a competition to pick his next royal assassin. He's gonna have a competition pitting all of the greatest assassins of the kingdom against each other, and the person who comes out victorious will be his own personal assassin. Here's the thing, we're told so much that she is the best assassin. Do we ever see it? No. I swear to God, I think her kill count in Throne of Glass, is it? I think it's actually 0. Wait, I don't think she actually killed anyone. Telling your readers that your main character is the best assassin is such a huge claim. Like, you know how, like, the courts rule that you can now sue people for misleading movie trailers? We never see it. We're just told time and time again, like much else in this book, how great she is, how amazing she is. She has, like, god-tier delusions that she is the best assassin, but in reality, we see nothing of that mentality, that efficacy. She belongs in Shutter Island. She's constantly imagining in her mind what she would do, how she would kill someone, how she would get out of a room, how she would do this, that, and the other thing, but she never does any of it. We never see her be an assassin. We just have her telling us, like, oh my gosh, I am so good. I could kill all of these guards right now and escape. The amount of imagining, like, I just don't, like, maybe she's tricked everyone into thinking she's the best assassin, you know what I mean? Like, maybe she belongs. This would have been so much cooler if she was, like, in an asylum and, like, she thought she was, like, the best assassin and everyone was, like, humoring her, and it was kind of like a Shutter Island type of situation. Yeah, she's useless. Kalani is not like other girls. She's not like other girls. In fact, she's so much not like other girls. She's not even a girl. She's just an assassin blade-wielding entity. So this book also has a tournament in it, right? So the Assassin's Tournament, that was such a letdown. Not to really, like, when I'm talking about these worst books, I think it comes, it should just already come pre-applied, you know, with the knowledge that the writing was not great, unless I, like, mentioned something significant about the writing, but the writing was not great, the pacing was so bad. It was extremely juvenile, which, to be fair, granted, Sarah J. Maas did write these books very, very young, but the tournament... Time to climb some walls. Time to shoot some arrows. That's the tournament we're talking about. You have the greatest assassins in the world and you're like, oh hey, could you do some beginner archery for me? I saw someone's review on Goodreads. Their suggestion is so much cooler because it would have been so interesting if you put all the assassins in the castle together and then made them like kill each other secretly, and the last person alive would have been, you know, the assassin. The other thing I want to say more on a serious note is that I think this novel, with a few others, has set the foundation for fantasy books where the girl main character is so petite to always the point of starvation, but she can also always kill you even though she's like 90 pounds, malnourished, but still incredibly attractive because everyone falls in love with her. It's okay for her to have feelings and kiss boys and do slightly promiscuous things, but the minute someone else does it, it's not okay and we hate her. So I've just seen this time and time again in so many young adult fantasy books. It's really damaging. It's really damaging coming from someone myself who read a bunch of that characterization when I was a young thing, a young lass, and I wish it would stop. So, cool. Next up, I think I actually like sitting on this pillow. That's better. Coming in at number 9, Verity by Colleen Hoover. We can just hoover this one right up. I have a vlog on this if you want to watch it, and there is spoilers in that one, so beware, but this is a story about Lowen, our main character, and she's actually the character I hated most in this book, which is interesting, but she gets a call that Verity, who's a very popular writer, is pretty much comatose and she can't write her books anymore, and they're looking for someone to ghostwrite the rest of her series. So Lowen, along with Verity's husband, Jeremy, they book it on down to the Verity estate, where Verity and Jeremy live with their son, Crew. I don't know, why would you name your son Crew? It just sounds like croup. Lowen soon finds out that things aren't really right in the household. She finds a manuscript in Verity's office detailing horrific things because it's her like autobiography that she's writing. So it's like her journal entries. Throwing Glass and Verity make it this high up the list because they were still entertaining, sometimes in very silly ways in certain parts, but the manuscript leads Lowen to believe that Verity might be faking her injury. She can't really walk or talk. She can only blink with her eyes. And along the way, things get more complicated because Lowen starts to fall in love with Verity's husband, who is a wet, raggedy, just wet rag of a man. Like, he has no personality. And I'm not sure why both Verity, you get Verity's very obsessive perspective about her husband and her journals, and Lowen fall in love with him. Like, he's just, his only quality is that he's like distantly polite. Like, he's just polite. So many like plot holes, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but there is one of the characters could have just been doing so much more, and I felt like a lot of this was just for shock factor. It's getting hard to focus. So many sex scenes. Did I say that yet? I don't think so. And not good ones. Just why? Like in Verity's manuscript, just so many. Like 90% of this book just felt like... Next up, we have one that I'm really angry about because I read this recently and like I really didn't need to, and that's Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. No, this is another thriller, and this, guys, this is why I don't read thrillers unless they're like, I don't know, but I really can't with the plot twists are always just so outlandishly out of nowhere. So Rock, Paper, Scissors is about this couple. I didn't mention this in my wrap-up, but I thought this was going to play a bigger role in the book because the husband has face blindness, so he can't recognize his wife. This is actually the first time I've ever heard of face blindness. I didn't know this neurological condition existed, actually, so that was really interesting. I'd love to do more research on that. I'm not sure if this book really did a great job with it. I'm not sure. The wife kind of has this problem where she feels invisible to her husband because he can't see faces. They win a vacation away to a remote part of Scotland where there is like a chapel turned into an Airbnb. Let me start with some quotes that I wrote down just so we can start with the writing, because the writing is something I want to point out with this one. I'm just gonna read these. Words don't come with gift receipts, and you can't take them back. Tiny violins always sound loudest to those playing them. I try to Control-Alt-Delete the thought, as always, but the keys in my mind get stuck. Wish you would have Control-Alt-Deleted that sentence. The woman Why can't I never say woman and women, plural? The woman wore her bitterness like a badge, the kind of person who writes 1-star book reviews. Some books do deserve a 1-star book review. Like, that is criticism that you should be listening to. Every single, like, end of a paragraph would be filled with a trite, like, cliche like that. Like, words don't come with gift receipts and you can't take them back. And it was just like that with every single thing. A lot of them were phrases I'd heard before. A lot of them were really weird, like the Control-Alt-Delete sentence. But why? Why was the writing like that? Everything. It was impressive how many of these she managed to type out, and I was like, please stop. Not only that, but I already mentioned this, that every chapter would end with a cliffhanger that then would be needlessly solved at the beginning of the next chapter. They get to this chapel, and things are spooky. We do get the perspective of both the husband and the wife. The wife works at a dog rescue, and the husband adapts novels to screenplay. Nope, to the screen. Keep it together. He is very busy with his work. He's very distant. He doesn't really, I mean, he's not really there, you know, he's just kind of working all the time. And here's the thing with face blindness. The book says that he can, like, recognize his wife's hair and, like, her clothes and, like, obviously her body. So I'm just kind of confused about a lot of things that went on in this book. Random things would happen in this chapel. The chapters would just be like, okay, this weird thing is going to happen, and then this weird thing is going to happen, and we're not going to spend any time with it. We're not going to have people really react to it. We're just going to move on to the next shock factor. Things were inserted in here that didn't make any sense, except, I guess, to unsettle either the reader or our protagonist. Like, for some reason, the wife goes down into the cellar, the lights go out, and then she sees, once the lights come back on, that there are scratch marks all over the cellar, and she sees a pamphlet that lets her know that the cellar was once a holding place or prison for witches during the witch trials. That never comes back around. Like, this book has nothing to do with witches or the supernatural. It was just weird stuff like that that was thrown in and then never talked about again. As well, because I mentioned that we get the perspectives of the husband and wife, sometimes either one of them would say things that seem to be huge plot points, like huge drops of things that would never be confirmed, never be talked about again, and had nothing to do with the plot of the book. For example, not really a spoiler, but the husband says in one of his chapters, if I have it my way, only one of us is going to be leaving here this weekend. Like, you suspect both of them from the off. It's fairly obvious from the synopsis as well that they both kind of have sinister machinations brewing about each other. But when he says, oh, only one of us is going to leave here this weekend, and then you read the book, not a lot of that really makes sense. I'm going to go on my dog rant now. At one point, their senior dog goes missing, who I think is a black lab, and his name is Bob. He's not very, he's just old. He goes missing in a blizzard, and they kind of search for him for a little bit, but then things start happening, and they just go back to the chapel and start being useless. Like, your dog went missing. If my dog went missing in the middle of nowhere in a blizzard and he's an old senior boy, I'm dropping everything. I don't care about my marital problems. I don't care about how cold it is. I don't care what's going on. I don't care that there's like a witch prison in my Airbnb. I'm finding my dog, and nothing is going to stop me until that happens. Like, the how quickly these people gave up on their dog, I would stop at nothing for this animal. I would go above and beyond. If I suspected my husband of somehow scaring my dog away, kidnapping our dog, or giving it to someone else, like, it's over for him, but like, I'll deal with him later. I'm gonna go get the dog first. This was just overall not great. And then at the end, the last thing I want to say is that the plot twist happened, and it got me, and I was like, okay, cool, that's interesting, doesn't salvage the book in any way, shape, or form, but okay. And then another plot twist happens right at the end of the novel that makes the previous plot twist not make any sense, and that's just really frustrating, because like, one was interesting enough in my opinion, and then she kind of just ruined it with this detail about like someone's past, and I was like, okay. Is this number 7? Number 7 on my worst books of the year list is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Skyward? No. More like Downward Spiral. That wasn't too bad, honestly. That's some of my best work. This is about a girl named Spencer. She wants to be a pilot. It's a young adult sci-fi, and we're on this planet called Detritus. Krell, who are aliens, are attacking, and we haven't ever been able to leave the planet because the Krell attack Even when we don't try to leave, they just try to keep us on the planet. We can't get out. Spencer wants to be a fighter pilot in a spaceship because her father was, until he got shot down for being a traitor to the colony and his comrades. And ever since then, everyone on the planet has hated her because of what her father has done. Brandon Sanderson has tried to create a very military-minded community. You could argue that maybe people for years and years and years would hold it against her and think that she is the exact replica of her father and would commit the exact same errors of judgment if she was let into a spaceship, but it was just so hard to believe that everyone hated her, would not want to let her fly, and even beyond that, bullied her and harassed her entire life because her father ran away from a battle. And then besides that, this book was so boring. So boring. This gets the sin of being one of the most boring books I've read this year. Our main character is definitely part of the problem because she has no personality except just trying to prove herself at every given moment. She and Selena Sardothian deserve to be best friends. They can hang out together because they have the same grandiose delusions. Spencer thinks that if she is let into a spaceship, she can kill the whole Krell army. She can do it despite never, she has no training, she has no credentials, she has no skills. So much of her personality is of course derived from the fact that she's just been labeled another coward her whole life, but the fact that she just thinks she is so superior and can do so much more than in reality she actually can was incredibly frustrating for me, because characters who are just so ignorant are just, they're so hard to follow for me. They're so hard to follow, and she was just ignorance to the extreme that I wanted her to fail. I never rooted for her. The repetition, the length of this book should have been cut down so much, because what the pacing ended up being was stacked scenes of training, because she gets let in. What's happening to me? Let into pilot school, so then they'd be training in simulations all day. She'd go and sleep in a cave because she couldn't sleep in flight school with everyone else, so she'd go there. She finds a spaceship in there, starts to repair it. She'd go back to train, go back to repair the ship, and hardly anything would happen. We do have a semi-large cast of characters who are equally annoying. On top of that, their dialogue you've driven me to drink, Brandon Sanderson. If I hear someone say the word scud one more time, don't start. You say scud, it's over for you. Or scudding as a swear word. I hate in young adult books when people replace swear words with their own little cutesy sci-fi or fantasy versions. Don't. It's not cool. It's not interesting. It's just annoying as all get out and grating. And the amount of times it was used. Either be brave enough to use swearing in young adult fiction or don't use it at all. No middle ground, in my opinion. The other thing is that the believability of this book was stretched beyond all limit. What ends up happening is that they're all in the simulation. All of these kids have never been in a spaceship, never been in a real spaceship, never fought, don't know, they've studied in books, battle tactics, maybe. The alarm goes off, the Krell are attacking, and the army commanders send these children into space in their first real battle when they've never even flown a spaceship before. You know what should happen? They should all die. Do they die? No, they don't. They even do some really cool things that help the battle. This is getting really ranty, but my other problem is that the Krell. Why do we have enemies with no motivation who we know nothing about? In this case, it's because Brandon Sanderson waits until the end of the book to hook you in. It was just a lot of info dump. Okay, this next one I can get through pretty quickly. The Silence of Bones by June Her. I'm really sad that this makes it so far down the list, but this makes it so far down because there's not really even anything I feel that strongly about. At least the other books elicit some kind of deep emotion from me, a deep dormant hatred in my blood. I think it's important to hate things. I am equally just as happy for you if you love these books. Truly I am. That would have been so cool if I loved these books. But The Silence of Bones. It is just The Silence of Bones. Actually, my bones aren't that silent. Listen. I think the writing style for this one is why it ranks so low as well. This is a debut novel, and you can really tell It's hard to find a, okay, here it is. Oh, there it was again. The writing is it's not silent bones that lay in the grave and decompose naturally into the rest of the universe and give life to everything else and complete the cycle. The writing in here, it's my bones. It's my bones. It's the creaky bones. It's the disjointed, very awkward, snapping off, very brittle, not a lot of calcium in here. I should probably drink some more milk of the OD variety, but I'm hard pressed to think of a book that is more awkward, stilted, whose sentences do not ring true to life, to the description of things, to the speech of human beings, to the interaction of people, to the intricate relationships that we have with each other. It was all of it messily placed. This is set in 1800s Joseon in what is Korea. And we're following Seol, and she is pretty much the lowest of the low indentured servants. She works for the police bureau. And this book, a good thing I can say about this book is the historical accuracies. I actually learned a lot about the spread of Catholicism in Korea, which at this time period was seen as heretical, and there were even murders of Catholics, and there was great persecution of Catholics, so it's kind of at the time when Catholicism is creeping in. Anyway, we find this noblewoman murdered, and Seol gets pulled in because she is able to touch women's bodies because it was seen as improper for the male detectives and police workers. And then the mystery ensues of who killed Lady O, the noblewoman. All of the characters spoke the same way. I can't distinguish anyone from anyone else. Such a linear journey, like a never-ending line just hammering its way to the end of the book. There were like no subplots really. There were no diversions. It was just Seol doing this, Seol doing that, doing this, like going this way, looking for clues. It was just this mystery that was not exciting. You're just walking along. You're like on this endless car race? No, cross country? Oh my god, what is it? Car trip? Road trip! Just an endless road trip with not a lot to look at. You're getting kind of car sick along the way, and you just have to drive along this like really straight road, and then you get to your destination, and your destination is some small town in Ontario that you don't really want to be in. I also hate when characters' motivations are in the past, am I right? Like, we get no chance to see the relationship she had with her siblings and that she loved them. We're just told that. Authors place people's motivations in the past, people's reason for doing something in the past, and we don't even hardly get any flashbacks. We just need to buy that they love someone so much, or they enjoyed doing something so much. They're just telling us that this thing happened when, guess what? If you're writing a novel and you just tell us something happened in the past, it didn't happen. It didn't actually happen because I wasn't there, and I'm the one making this novel along with the author because I'm the one reading it. Do you know what I mean? Like, the novel doesn't exist, the story doesn't exist until someone reads it or hears it and has it. We have Sleepwalking by Meg Wolitzer. I read this so early on in the year that I don't really have a lot to say about this. We're following 3 girls in college who call themselves the Death Girls. That's cringe. They're obsessed with women poets who have committed suicide, and they gather around in the dark and read their poetry out loud to each other. We got no exploration of, like, why are they obsessed? Like, who are these poets? Where was the poetry? We didn't get an in-depth analysis of any of these things. It was more just like a very boring study of grief. It wasn't nuanced enough. It wasn't explored enough. It was very shallow. Like, you had no opportunity to drown in this book. And then our main character starts sleeping with this guy in her class, and she's like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't unalive myself, and maybe I should stop idolizing death and start idolizing that. It just really felt like less like it was exploring real grief and just like someone who wanted to be sad for the aesthetic of being sad. This book felt like Tumblr. Okay, I have so much to say about this book. Number 3, you're probably gonna be really surprised that this ranks as high up as it does. This is probably actually the book that I most enjoyed out of this list in a really interesting way, but I feel like it has to rank this low because of the things I'm about to say. That book is A Kingdom of Little Wounds by Susan Kokol. This is the grossest book I've ever read, but before I say that, because there's always like books that I don't like, and then of course there's people who are like, Emma, you don't get it. Emma, you didn't understand. You didn't get it. No, I get it. I just have my own opinions. This is a fairy tale about syphilis. It's set in late 1500s in, I think, Norway. And we're following 3 girls, but what we're really following is the movement of everyone's bodily fluids in the castle. This is a book that focuses in extremely deeply on I wrote it all down. Let me just read this. This book is hundreds of pages of spit, mucus, bile, vomit, blood, other fluids, feces, bowel movements, miscarriages, sexual assault, torture, body horror, mutilation, and bestiality. This is a book whose plot is focused on those things, on the little wounds, the small horrors that we endure with our bodies every single day. That's a topic that's extremely important to me, honestly. I don't think this book did it well. Susan Kuckel is so brave for writing this. Like, she's so brave. She went places she didn't need to go. If you are all interested in the theory of Kristeva and the abject, this book is somehow young adult, which we'll get to in a second, but like I said, I actually like this book in a weird way. It was not done very well, in my opinion. That's why it's so low. I think the exploration of things that everyone pushes out of sight, the things that we relegate to, like, we're not going to talk about that. No one goes to the bathroom in books. No one does any of those things. But Susan Kuckel in A Kingdom of Little Wounds focuses in, and that's what the characters become. They become those things that no one wants to talk about. We follow King Christian V. He has, I think, irritable bowel syndrome or something. So his whole chapters are descriptions of him on the toilet. We have his daughter who is killed by the plague. Her chapters, because she's dead, are people ripping apart her body, trying to find out how she died, examining her body. It's extremely gruesome. If you're squeamish, don't. But I love, like I said, the idea of having a story centered around the depravity of the body, of the things that no one is really comfortable with, of the things we wish maybe didn't have to happen to us. I think it's something that just needs to be talked about so much more. 400 pages of, like, okay, this person's going to the bathroom. This person's getting sexually assaulted. This person smells like pee. This person is vomiting. This person's having a medical examination that is going really poorly, but it doesn't balance it out with any plot, with anything that makes up for those moments where our body is going through some sort of little wound or little trauma that adds up to a big, huge physical and psychological damage. It doesn't make up for any of that. You don't see really the joys of life. You just have this slog of people's bodies being mutilated, even through everyday functions, if you think about it. And it became laughable. It's not explored in a way where it properly analyzes these things that we go through every single day, the things that we don't even think about anymore, but that some of us maybe have to think about more than others because our bodies don't hide them, as well as other bodies. Maybe people are in pain a lot more often than other people. Maybe people's bodily functions cause them a lot more stress. Maybe they happen in a different way. Maybe they have periods that aren't normal high, and every single month you spend a week screaming on the floor. That's me. It's sharing hour. In the book, it wasn't done in a way that corresponds it back to our psyche and examines the effect properly on ourselves, other than having people like, oh, she just went mad. You know, she just lost it. She went insane. For example, we have Queen Isabel. She has a miscarriage. All of this is extremely graphic, by the way. And she's really grieving, but all of it is done in a way that people don't really speak that much. We just have their actions and their bodily happenings accounting for their being, which is an interesting idea. But when she has a miscarriage and then later on in her grief, she makes a little arts and crafts project out of the remains of her children. None of it's properly really explored. It barges into the realm of shock factor every single page, and none of it is ever really done justice or I think explored in a meaningful way, other than just showing us our own bodies, which we never read in media or books. When do we ever really read about the workings, the inner workings of our bodies in books? It's something that shocks you on the page, but I think that's just step one. You have to go a step further, because otherwise you're left with this book that just was making me giggle the whole way through because of the way that it was written. We have people shoving sliced off genitals into their bosoms to like conceal it and then running off with it, and then cats eating said body parts. People just out of nowhere call things the Great Loose Child Birthing Canal. That was not wise. And on top of that, I'm not really sure who this book is for, because it has extremely graphic scenes of everything. The last image I'll leave you with is that someone sewed jewels into their junk. A man stitched like rubies and sapphires to protect him from the plague. So best believe he's still bejeweled when he walks in the room. Number two is Artemis by Andy Weir. Again, I've said so much about this book recently, I don't even want to like give it any screen time. I'm about to unhaul it. Man, this was just plain icky. This book gave me so much ick. Sci-fi about a planet on the moon that has no laws. This honestly felt, and like someone commented this, and I'm not sure if it's true, but it checks out in my brain and it makes sense, is that like Andy was just writing this story about this girl. She says it herself. I'm the resident lunar whore or something like that. And then his wife found it and then he had to make it into a whole book. I don't know if that's true, but it honestly checks out. This is the worst like men writing women writing style I've ever seen. It makes you angry in a very sad kind of way. That's like, this is the best you can come up with. Like, this is the best you can do. It's less insulting to me than it is to you, the author. Like, this is just embarrassing. Like I said, this book is 50% let me explain to you every single science thing that I'm about to do, and 50% let me objectify my main character needlessly to the point of exhaustion. Let me make her objectify herself. She comes out wearing like a dude's long t-shirt and then she says, I have to admit, I do look pretty sexy. The world is split into different countries from Earth that come, and then that country that come guys, I'm struggling. It's the part of the video where I'm, whoa, struggling so much. Man, this book sucked. I don't know how to form a sentence anymore, but it was not good. This whole book just gave me a really weird vibe, I don't usually say this about any book that I read, but this one, I was just like, this is very suspicious. Aside from the writing, like, the plot did not make up for this at all. She discovers a conspiracy at the core of her planet, and then she goes on a mission to hopefully try and stop it, but the book was just not interesting. It was weird. This book was just not it. So that is Artemis. Number one worst book that I read this year is Gothikana. It's Gothikana. I Gothicant by Runix. Worst book because of the writing. I think this is maybe sometimes what gives self-publishing a bad rap. Bad rep? Bad rap. The room's kind of spinning. Please hit that like button and subscribe. If you can't write, don't write a book. If you can't spell, don't write a book. It's like a dark academia romance, but please don't read it. This shouldn't be sold. Okay, let's be serious for a second. It's not done. It's about this girl named Corvina. She has purple eyes because why not? And she goes to this castle where she falls in love with her professor and starts smashing that professor, and he's really creepy, and people are jumping off the top like turret of the castle and they have to solve the mystery together. Here are all the dog ears of almost all of the grammatical mistakes, errors, spelling mishaps that I've encountered. As you can see, that's almost every single page, because at one point I gave up. It's just infuriating. And this has such a high rating on Goodreads, and it's just like, oh my gosh. How is this possible? Like, I'm at the end of this video, I'm really drunk right now, and how is this possible? Like, why? I'm struggling to form a thought, and so was this book. Books exist to be criticized, is what I'm gonna say. And best case scenario, they exist to be spread around and loved and have deep meaning, or just be for pure entertainment value, which I think is also just as important. Gothikana did, oh god, Gothikana did none of those things, and so it gets a 1 star in the bottom of the list because this was barely a book to me, to be honest. I've been filming for an hour. I really need to go eat some food. Happy New Year. I hope this was enjoyable. Maybe we should do this more often. I love you guys so much. You guys are just wonderful and you mean the world to me, and I'm really happy that you say that we get to talk in the comment section, we get to talk in live shows, and I just want to say such a big thank you. I think I'm gonna post this probably in a couple of days, so Happy New Year to you. I hope you're having a really good time, and you can let me know what your worst book of the year was. Editing sober me is not gonna have a fun time with this. Read some good books, but also bad books are important, okay? Don't ever forget that. And I don't mean any... Do I mean disrespect? I kind of sometimes do. Do you know that? I kind of sometimes do mean disrespect to some of these books, but not all of them. So, anyway. So, good night. Ciao.